In this video, we're going to be changing the rear brake shoes on a 2021 Nissan Navara. You're going to need to remove the rear drum to do this. If it's too tight, you're going to have to loosen off the brake shoes through the adjuster. First, you're going to want to remove the little spring that is attached to the self-adjuster. And once that's removed, you're going to want to remove the little string at the bottom, which holds the brake shoes together. Then you're going to want to remove the retainers that hold on the brake shoes. I highly recommend taking a lot of photos before you do this if you haven't done it before, as it can be a little bit confusing of where everything goes when you have to put it back together. Wind the brake shoes in. You can use this little adjuster to wind them in with some pliers just to make removal a lot easier. Once you have removed the retaining clips, you should be able to just separate them and then pull it all apart when they're all loosened off because there's no tension on anything. You'll have to remove that big spring as you saw me do there, and then everything should just fall apart pretty straightforward. This bracket that's connected to this cable is the handbrake bracket. So what you're going to want to do is you have to remove the handbrake bracket from the actual shoe by removing this circlip. It's vitally important. Do not lose that circlip. As you can see, this is the difference between old and new. This brake shoe had a big crack in it as well, which isn't a good thing. Also, keep in mind when you remove your brakes, you'll probably notice that more often than not, one side of the brake shoe is more worn than the other, but this is just normal. What you're going to want to do now is give the backing plate a good clean, a good scrub, and then check the wheel cylinder. Make sure there's no leaking or anything through it. All you got to do is give it a squeeze, move it back and forth. Generally speaking, you can replace these when you do replace your brake shoes, but these ones are in really good condition and the car is not that old as well. Apply a small amount of grease to these little grease points on the backing plate. This is just where the brake shoes will slide up again, so they need to move freely. Reinstall the handbrake bracket and then make sure that the spring is in the correct position when you reinstall it. Now you can start to put everything back together. Reinstall the retaining clip that holds on the brake shoe. As you can see, I put the adjuster in the middle there just to have everything lined up. Reinstall the second brake retainer, but as you can see, it is actually adjusted to be too close, so we're going to have to open it back up a bit so it has the right amount of tension on it. So double check your work as you're going along, as these things can happen, but if you take your time and refer to your photos, you shouldn't have a problem. Now you're going to want to put this big spring back on, so make sure your brake adjuster is set correctly so you can avoid having any issues of pushing pistons out of the wheel cylinders. Place the self-adjuster in position and then reinstall the bottom spring and then reinstall the self-adjuster spring. It's also worth noting that give everything a thorough clean, all the hardware, when you're reusing it, and with the self-adjuster you will need to grease it a little bit on the points that it moves. Then you can just reinstall your drum. Keep in mind you will need to adjust the brake shoes to either be tighter or looser. Generally speaking, depending if you're towing, you're not towing, the type of driving you're doing, all this kind of stuff needs to be considered, and there are a few points of adjustment that you'll need to do. I won't be showing how to adjust them in this video just because it takes a little bit more time and it's good to have both wheels jacked off the floor when you're doing it. But a good guideline may be to have the shoes just touching where you can move them by hand. This gives you room later to make some adjustments if you need to make them either looser or tighter after a couple of test drives you do. If you like this video, please like, share and follow for more. Thank you so much.